Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think Winston Churchill once said that everything that needs to be said has been said, but it hasn't been said by everybody. So here I am as your keynote speaker to really pull together this amazing gathering of such committed human beings, as well as innovators and doers, not just thinkers. And it's such an honor to be with you, Secretary Rizvi. Thank you for the leadership that you and Joint Secretary Qureshi have both brought to this. You're clearly incredible innovators and thinkers. You have a context for what you're doing, and it reflects the boldness of the ambition of the Indian people and the Indian government at this moment. And it very much makes me feel at home as somebody who served in local government to hear national government leaders who understand that we have to work together at all levels of government to tackle those problems that ignore borders, whether they're between states, whether they're between countries. This is something that calls on all of us to really come together as a single team, and it feels like that very much up here today. I also want to thank both Apurva, of course, John as well, and Vinay, the Americans and part of the American mission. And I love that we have an Indian American who got married here in this room, who's been here, serving here, has come back here with even greater levers of change that he oversees, working for our great special envoy on climate, Secretary John Kerry. And also that we have in the U.S. mission in India, people like Apurva, as Americans come and go, who really are the lifeblood of our mission, USAID, in the State Department, folks who care so deeply about this relationship between the United States and India, and who know that when the United States and India are together, it's not the US plus India, it's the US times India. It's an exponential relationship in terms of what we can get out of it in the United States, what India can get out of it here, and what we can do together for the world, as we just saw demonstrated at G20, when the United States and our incredible hosts here, who really put together the strongest and most productive G20 in history, we showed the world what happens when you show up and when you work together, when you're willing to compromise and when you're willing to have a vision, how this is a way forward for the world. Instead of finding what we're against, it's finding what we are together here for. Now, I grew up riding the bus as a student, ever since I was 5 or 6 years old. Looking back on it, my parents were crazy. They put me on a bus at like 7 years old by myself with my sister, who was 9, not much older. And every single day we rode the public bus home from our elementary school. We had to transfer once. It was a long trip in Los Angeles. In the days when Los Angeles had the dirtiest, most polluted air in America. Sound familiar? Days in which you couldn't literally go outside and play. We were prohibited at our schools because our lungs would burn, and we felt the impact. Los Angeles was rising in the same way that India is right now. The economy was booming. Hollywood, aerospace, international trade, the manufacturing capital of the United States. But it came at a cost. It came at the cost of our health. We lived at the intersection of 2 main highways. And on my street alone, we had a dozen plus people that got cancer. Both of my parents had cancer. My sister has had cancer. Thankfully, all 3 of them have survived it. But we saw the human impact of what pollution does to life expectancy, to health. We knew that from a human endpoint, and we changed what our inputs were, transforming those buses I used to ride that were diesel to natural gas, which we thought was much cleaner. And in many ways it was. Air pollution came down, but we didn't realize there was a second pollutant, almost as bad as diesel buses, in natural gas that still was causing our Earth to rise, change the very environment that we lived in. When I was in college, I took a class. I thought it would be the easiest science requirement, so I took it. It was called The Design and Maintenance of a Habitable Planet, taught by Dr. Wallace Broecker. And Wally Broecker was the man who termed global warming. He told us that year when I took that class that there was this report that came out from UN experts, and it was the first IPCC report of the International Panel of Climate Change Experts, who were looking at the impact of what would happen if we didn't stop our ways. I think the year was 1989 or 1990. When I look back at that year, and if that young man could speak to this now middle-aged man and say, one day you'll still be fighting this fight, and in fact, it'll be even more urgent than that moment, I probably wouldn't have believed it. And yet that's the world that we live in here today, one that requires the urgency of today for the lungs of our people, for the health of our earth, for the jobs that we can create, and so much more. So as we look at our ambitions today, I hope that we'll raise our ambitions and accelerate why it is that the United States and India are joining hands here. Because I came off of 10 years nearly of serving as the mayor of the second largest city in America, where when I saw this proposed to me on the schedule, I had to scratch my head and say, wait, am I in Delhi or am I in Los Angeles? Because as the chair of our Los Angeles Metropolitan Transit Authority, we are doing the same thing. We're hosting the Olympics in America in 2028 in Los Angeles. And when I chaired the board of our transportation authority at the local level, I set the ambition of getting to complete electric buses by 2028 when the Olympics come. We didn't know where we'd buy them. People said the technology wasn't there. They said it's way more expensive. But as these experts and these leaders have shown, the cost, the short-term cheap cost, has a long-term expense. In other words, the price of living cheaply in the short term, in years of life lost, in a planet that is heating up, in the $1 trillion+ just of natural disasters this past year, where we saw floods and fires and hurricanes and so many other things destroy the lives of so many, we have to take this action no matter the cost now. Now the good news, it's getting cheaper. It's getting more efficient. The maintenance cost of an electric vehicle is so much lower than the ongoing maintenance costs of a natural gas or a diesel bus. I received my first electric vehicle just as when I was a professor in 1998, and General Motors, our largest car company in the United States, built something called the EV1. I loved it. It went a whole 50 miles before you had to charge it. And I thought that this was the beginning of a sea change. But within about 4 years, General Motors took those cars, said, these will never work, they'll never pencil out, and they literally crushed the cars, destroyed them. We begged them if we could buy them with our own money, and they said, nope, we're going to destroy these forever. We even filmed a film that was called Who Killed the Electric Car, and had a mock funeral that I spoke at a cemetery where we had the EV1 before they took it from us. And now as we see, not only General Motors, companies like Tata that made the bus out here, race forward to try to figure this out, we feel like we've lost 25, 30 years of momentum. But it's not too late. The message we're sending today with this partnership is we will find whatever the impediments are on this clean highway before us and figure out a way to finance it. If it's local government and bus companies that aren't sure about making payments, we'll set up a guarantee that those payments will be there so those who finance these buses will roll capital in more quickly because we can't wait. If the problem is convincing consumers to buy electric vehicles, think about this statistic. It took 10 years in the United States for the first 1 million electric vehicles to be bought, 5 years for the second, and this past year it took 1 year for the third 1 million vehicles to be sold. And here, with 2- and 3-wheel vehicles, in many ways, India can claim to be one of the centers, if not the capital, of electric vehicle production and consumption already. When I became ambassador, I said there were 4 Ps that we would focus on as a mission and for our country. Peace, prosperity, our planet, and our people. And in so many ways, this combines all of these things. The threats to our planet, whether it comes from war or, in this case, climate, we have to find a way forward for peace. Prosperity, we know that there are jobs behind these changes. When people fear the construction of this, we know that in the Secretary's hometown of Lucknow, this bus was made. And there are people working in that hometown because of the progressive policies that you have put forward. We know our planet is the existential crisis of this moment, and we know that our people deserve to live better, cleaner. And a lot of people forget these buses aren't just cleaner, they're quieter. Think about how loud a city is. Now imagine every vehicle being electric. We can hear those birds again. We can hear the people again. We can hear the real meaning of the city behind that. So maybe the last P, partnership, is something I'm so proud that the United States and India are embodying today. I took a retreat with my senior staff this past weekend. We actually were in the ITC, sorry Imperial, we love this hotel. It was an ITC Grand Bharat hotel, which is where the Indian government locked up all of the Sherpas from all the countries and said, take it or leave it. And together with the United States, we joined hands and we said, this is worth showing the world that the world can come together. G7 wealthy countries with G20 other countries that are aspiring to more wealth. those who come from east, west, north, south, and we can actually find what unites us instead of what divides us. And while we were there over this past weekend, we had speakers, former Ambassador Rich Verma, who's now our Deputy Secretary of State, Don Liu, who's our Assistant Secretary of State, who once served as the Deputy Chief of Mission here in India. And they said, every year we're blown away by the new heights that this relationship continues to ascend. This year was unthinkable. Last year was unthinkable 2 years before now, and so on and so forth. And while we can certainly look up at the mountain, we know that we have much further to go. There will be challenges in this relationship like any relationship. It is undergirded by a deep friendship and, I believe, shared values at the end of the day. When we're at our best, the values that say we do this for ourselves, we do this as friends for each other, but also we want to make our mark on the world. So congratulations to everybody for being a part of this. Thank you to my USAID team, my state team, our energy team, and no to our friends in the government of India. We know that leadership comes from sometimes in the front. The United States has done that a lot of our history. But I think we're humble and modest enough to know when you want us to lead side by side or even to follow. And we look forward to following our Indian friends, marching along with them, and leading the world forward together. We have no other way but forward. Let us do it together. Jai Hind, and God bless America. Thank you so much.